radial distribution function. So today I'm going to talk about this, briefly talk about radial distribution function, and generally it represented as g of r, and these are also called as pair correlation functions. Why this is very important is, we will see why this is extremely important, but from a theoretical perspective, why it is very important is, see, many of the partition functions you studied, can you compare partition function with some of the experiment? Is there any comparison between partition function you calculated from the experiments? I think it's anybody can answer. Can you compare your partition function with the experiments?
Sir, we did the coin toss problem. There we had that.
No, okay. Forget this. What I'm saying is, general your thermodynamics experiments or material experiments, magnetization. Can you compare your partition function with any of your experimental? Is there any experiment to calculate partition function?
No, sir.
No.
No, sir.
No, right? Macroscopically, there would be only one preferred state. That would kind of define your average state. Remember? So macroscopically, it's not that these molecules are exploring all the states and then finally they say, oh, okay, here I have the higher probability and I'll stay there. No, that's not how things work, right? Because if you see in a room, you don't see, or if you see water, you don't see water exploring vapor phase. I'm not talking about evaporation. Just if you just from a perspective, then it doesn't see go to the solid phase, and then after some time it kind of, oh, this is my best state, so free with the lowest free energy, so I'll be in liquid state. So that does not happen. So water is always liquid, but statistical mechanics doesn't say that, right? What it says is, there is a probability that it can exist in gas, there is a probability that it can exist in liquid, or it can exist in solid. But after, when we do all these calculations, because the way probabilities are distributed, it says that it's highly likely that it will be liquid water, right? But there may be very small fluctuations which may cause it to also be in the vapor state or in the solid state. So for example, what statistical mechanics says is, so let's say if this is the probability, you can draw it as thin as possible, right? So it says there's a very high likelihood that this is in, let's say, water, in liquid state. Water is in liquid state, but it never ever kind of says it cannot be in vapor phase. Okay, that does not happen. So there may be some fluctuations in the system if you wait for very, very, very long time, right? By long time, I'm talking about maybe age of the universe or even more than that. So some fluctuations may cause, but the probability is very less. That's what the statistical mechanics says. But in experiments, you don't do that, right? You measure whatever things you measure it. Okay, so don't confuse this with the quantum measurement, all those things. So this has nothing to do with quantum mechanics. What we are basically saying is that there's a likelihood that this can happen, but that likelihood is very, very less. So macroscopically, all the time you measure, it'll be in some state. So you cannot measure any partition function, right? So I cannot experimentally determine partition functions. But this pair correlation functions g of r, actually it's very easy to obtain through theory or simulations. It doesn't matter, because simulations are again would be based on theory only. But I can also get this information through experiments. Not directly, So you'll get something called the structure function through, if I do scattering studies, I'll get something called the structure function S of k. So S of k is, k means it's in the Fourier space, I'll get the structure function. And from there, I can actually obtain something called the H of k. Okay. The name is not important. So S of k structure function name is very important. And then I can obtain G of k is nothing but, I think it's H of k plus 1. Okay. And if I just take the inverse Fourier transform, I'll get G of r. Okay. So all these things are not extremely important to remember. What is important to remember is I can obtain G of r through experiments also. So it is very, very important to understand this. Okay. So if any questions till now? Okay. So if I look at a molecule, let's assume I have written this molecule. Then I have another system. Let's assume what do you see is so basically what I've done is I've taken a snapshot at some instant of time between two systems of these molecules, right? So it's very difficult to do that. Like you cannot actually take, but assume that I've taken a snapshot. So what is the difference between 1 and 2? Anybody?
Molecules are apart in two, but not in one.
I didn't hear.
Molecules are at a large distance as compared to one.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Any other answers? What is the difference between 1 and 2 when you look at the I can wait.
Molecules in tools in second case are more dispersed.
Yeah. Yeah. Correct. So basically, yeah, both the answers are right. So the question is, if I just there is no all these molecules are what? Are they distinguishable or indistinguishable? Somebody can answer.
Molecules are indistinguishable.
Yeah, you cannot distinguish between the molecules, all of the same type, right? So let's assume yourselves to be sitting on one of this molecule. Here you are sitting here. Let's assume you are here sitting here. Once you sat on that molecule, your job is to, so I've stopped here. So of course the molecules are, so it's a homogeneous system, right? So it's everywhere like this. And even here I've stopped here, but it is cannot fill the entire thing. So your job is to, you sit on one of these molecules, right? Imagine yourself sitting on the molecule and you're drawing spheres of various or spherical shells of various thickness. If 3D is difficult, imagine 2D. Okay, imagine all the molecules are adsorbed on the surface. Okay, it's easy to think in 2D, right? So imagine all the molecules are adsorbed on the surface. Now think of the distributions. You are sitting on one of the molecule. So where do you, and you're plotting the number of molecules as a function of R. Okay, so let's say I have, this is R. So in case 1, how does it look? Let's look at case 1. So at smaller distances, are there larger molecules?
More number of molecules will be there. Right?
Yeah. Let me, anybody else? wants to
At the
answer?
smaller R value, more molecule will be there. Means the
For one or
concentration will be high.
for one or two?
For one. For one.
Okay. So let's assume that I'm plotting the number of molecules as a function of R, and as I go like this, what will happen is that initially for system 1, you'll see there are a lot of molecules, like more number, and at very large distances, what will happen? For 1, I think it will reach a plateau, right? It will reach a plateau. But for system 2, at small distances, also the number of molecules is very less. And of course, at large distances, again, it reaches a plateau. So the question is this: if you are sitting on this molecule, why will the other molecule come close to you? In case 1. In case 2, why will the molecules are remaining farther?
It will depend upon the intermolecular force or something.
Correct,
They are
correct.
attracted on them.
Yeah. So you should be confident, right? What you're saying is exactly right. Because in maybe case 1, the molecule, maybe there is hydrogen bonding, right? You don't know, right? And maybe there is electrostatic attraction. So there is some intermolecular forces which is driving these two molecules to come closer. Whereas in case 2, these molecules are not, the intermolecular forces are weak, so they are just hanging around, dispersed in the space. Like, so this is, you can think of this as air, right? So the intermolecular forces are very weak. Here you can think of liquid, etc. Right? So if you now have this assumption, right, there is some intermolecular forces which is different between these two. As a result, the molecules are arranging differently. Now assume yourselves to be sitting on one of these molecules. Okay, you are sitting on one of the molecules. Now what is, and for each of this system there is something called for a given system, let's say there is something called density, right? And remember, in statistical mechanics we always talk about number density. So you just multiply by mass and volume, you will get the in kg per meter cube. So that's not. So let's assume a system. Okay, the overall density is rho. So for example, what it means, I take a system, you take your system and you put it in a container of volume V. Okay, can be anything, solid, liquid, gas, whatever. So I know the volume V and I know how many number of molecules I put, right? If 1 mole or 2 moles, and I know the number of molecules. So what is this number density? Number density will be N by V. Okay, so this is the number density. Okay, so now let's take the first case to be an ideal gas. Okay, you have put an ideal gas inside a container which has a volume V. Is everybody following this? So this is a radial distribution is a very important concept, very easy concept, but the most confused concept. So please pay attention and you stop me anytime, okay? Because it's a very easy concept. So you put an ideal gas in a container which has volume V, and let's say you are sitting on one of the molecules, and if I ask you how many molecules are there in a spherical shell that is a distance r away, meaning to say that I'm constructing this shell. So anytime if 3D causes a problem, you think of it in 3D and only the math you need to extend in, think of it in 2D, only the mathematics you need to kind of extend in 3D, okay? Okay, so what I am doing is, here I am counting the number of molecules in this spherical shell of radius of thickness delta r that remains between the radius or the shells of radius r and r plus delta r. Okay, imagine, is everybody following this? So you should know if it's a 2D, it's the dA is 2 pi r dr. If it's 3D, dV would be 4 pi r square dr. You should know how these values come. Okay, the area of a cube, volume of a cube is 4 by 3 pi r cube. Then you can calculate the volume of this spherical shell. So is everybody following this? Imagine you are sitting on the one of the molecules and you are looking around yourself and you are saying, I want to count the number of molecules that are lying between in a spherical shell of volume dV, which is between the spherical shells of radius r and r plus dr. Is everybody following this? Yes or no?
Sir, please
Yes,
repeat
sir.
the last line.
Okay, by looking at the figure, what does it look?
Sir, it's like we have sir, at the center we have a molecule on which we are we are there, and we have constructed a shell of radius r having thickness dA.
In thickness?
And having thickness dr,
Hmm.
and it's we are assuming it 3D, and
Yeah.
that's all. Means
Yeah.
that's what we
Oh,
get.
okay. So you are counting the number of molecules that are there in between the shell R and dr. So imagine all of you sitting in a class, right? And if imagine the number of students in the class is 10,000, right? So then you can actually neglect all these end effects, etc. So imagine some person sitting in the middle of the class, right? 10,000 is a very big number. So what this we are looking at is how many students are sitting. If I actually construct a circle, and if you want to, in this example, you can construct a square, right? A kind of cuboidal, and looking at, you guys cannot fly, right? All of you have to sit. So just think of a 2D representation where all of you are sitting and you are counting how many students are there between rows who are at a distance of maybe 3 and 5, who are greater than distance 3 and who are less than distance 5. That is the analogy here. Okay,
Okay, sir.
is all of you following this? Yes or no? Okay, so now how many molecules are there in this volume? Can you tell me?
Rho dV.
Rho into
Yeah, somebody told rho dV, right? So that's correct. Rho into volume, so that is rho 4 pi r square dr. So this is the number of molecules that are present in that shell. Okay, now this is for ideal gas, correct? What is the assumption what is the assumption behind saying this? You said it's rho dV. What is the assumption you made?
Sir, we took the rho as the average and homogeneous rho for whole of the sphere.
Correct. Exactly correct. That's a very good answer. So what we assumed is rho is constant throughout. And we didn't kind of look at, we didn't bother to say if there are any local density variations, etc. It's neglected. Now, why do we get? So for an ideal gas, is this a good approximation that rho is constant everywhere? What is the reason why there will be some local density changes, or what is the reason, even if we think that why there will be some density change? What may be the reason?
Because in ideal gas you have the intermolecular force. Sorry, no, you are not having the intermolecular force.
Yeah. So the main reason for any molecules or any things to come close or stay far apart is the intermolecular force. So if you look at ideal gas, So what is the intermolecular force for an ideal gas? The potential energy U of R is 0, right? Is everybody following this? Okay. So since U of R is 0, then the molecules actually don't care where they are, what's next to us. So the density will be constant throughout. So I can write this as dn rho pi 4 pi r square dr. Okay, is everybody following this? Any questions here? Okay. Now let's take a real gas, which is, let's start with a gaseous system, then we'll go to liquids, etc. Now for a real gas, uh, does this assumption hold good? Where will it hold good for a real gas? In what limit?
When pressure tends to 0.
Okay, that's but we are looking at a real gas in normal.
When n tends to infinity, means in thermodynamics limit.
All studies we are looking is thermodynamic limit only. Okay, there's
So
nothing.
sir, for large system, we guess constant density.
So for high temperature,
No,
low
first,
pressure.
I think I want to correct few things here. All the statistical mechanics you are studying is for large systems only. All the systems we are saying as n tends to infinity. So please get rid of that misconception. All the systems we are studying are for large systems only. So it does not matter on that. Of course, beyond a certain n, so it does not matter. So basically all the systems are for large n only we are studying. So we are looking at large n systems, and intramolecular forces does not depend on n. Okay, it's intramolecular forces are inbuilt. So an electron will definitely kind of what will happen to electron and proton? A positive or negative charge, they will attract, irrespective of if I have 10 molecules or 1000 molecules. Okay, how they attract is a different thing, right? If I keep 10 molecules of something in a big room like your classroom, then they may not see each other that often. But if I keep it in a very small place, they will see. But the attraction repulse, those forces will always, they are not governed by uh, your external number of molecules built. Okay, so that is, I think, one, I think, I don't, you have to kind of think that misconception. I request all of you to remove. Okay, it has nothing to do with n. So for real gas, when can we assume this particular limit to follow? I think one answer was at very high temperatures, low pressures, that's fine. But in terms of distances, so how does a real gas vary with to an ideal gas?
So if we consider like large R's, then the intermolecular forces would be sort of negligible.
Yeah,
So
that's correct. That's correct. So when he says large R's, they are not extremely large. These are actually, if you go maybe 2 to 3 diameters away, the molecules, actually real gas have zero attraction. So they also behave like ideal gas only. Okay. Remember some of the models we constructed for real gas. One was my hard sphere model, right? Other was Leonard Jones. And here this is sigma. And here this was, I think this is sigma, right? So these are actually, even in a real gas, all these are extremely short range forces. So for a distance that is slightly larger than maybe 1 or 2 diameters, again they don't feel any interactions. Okay, remember. So when do they feel the change, or when is this interactions felt? At short distances or large distances? For real gas.
But short.
Yeah, so at very short distances, there is a deviation compared to a ideal gas, right? Because at short distances, there are these interactions which are changing this. So for example, the you can think of an analogy that you're sitting in a classroom, but you have a special liking for some person, right? Or a type of people, whatever. So then if you then what will happen around you, you will find more of such people, or around you there's a cluster of molecules, but at long distances of course you cannot interact with them, so there you are okay with the uniform distribution. But near you, you will make sure that there are more molecules because you like those. Is everybody following this analogy? Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So now the question is, now what will happen? So now if I say dn1 for a real gas, and again the rho is the overall rho, you know, if I say rho times 4 pi r square dr, is this correct for a real gas?
This density should also be function of R then for real gas?
Correct. So my rho will also be some function of, it's actually a function of r and t, but now let's assume it's only a function of r. Okay, we are looking at some constant. Let's assume the temperature is constant. So then this local density rho is also a function of I would say distance and temperature. Is everybody following? But have you ever seen people talking about rho in terms of distance and temperature? Yeah, then temperature is fine, right? You say as temperature increases, the density decreases for water, all that is. But have you seen at a given temperature people saying, oh, within 2 point something, the density is this, after that? Have you ever heard that? Even for
During the
water?
flow of the
No,
river.
sir.
So if water, if people ask what's the density, you'll say it's whatever 1000 kg per meter cube or 998. You won't say at 2 near, maybe at 4 angstrom it is this 5 no, right? So generally what we do is to look at these local density variations. I'll write this as a function of something. So where is the thing that is changing? The thing I have to change is this function, some rho star, right? That is accounting for this local density variation, this rho star. So the rho star is written as g of r times rho. Okay. Now what happened is you changed. Now I know this rho is constant, like for a given system, right? So this rho is n by v. This I have used a function with g of r. Now think of this. If it is an ideal gas, what will be g of r?
1.
It will be 1.
Yeah, g of r will be 1. Okay, remember any distance from 0 to infinity, g of r would be 1. Now, if I have a system where the molecules are liking each other, so locally, what will be the value of g of r?
Greater than 1.
Somebody answered right, but I didn't hear that right.
Greater than 1.
Yes, so the g of r would be greater than 1. But let's say if I have a system where molecules are repelling, so let's say I put positive charges and you are calculating the density. So what will happen? G of r will be
Less than 1.
1 or less than 1. G of r would be less than 1, right? Because compared to, so there will be that this density, this number would be less. So when will the number be less? Since rho is a constant, G of r will be less than 1. So basically this is giving you, so dn ideal in any case, if I assume ideal gas behavior would be rho 4 pi r square dr. Now dn for a real system is, I say rho g of r 4 pi r square dr. Now, how do I define, one way to define the radial distribution function or pair correlation function G of r is the ratio of number of molecules of your system, and you divide the number of molecules, sorry, this is dn real divided by dn ideal. So this will be dn real. If you look at this, it's rho G of r divided by rho 4 pi r square dr. So I'll get these things get cancelled. So I get this is nothing but G of r. So G of r is actually like a probability, but it's not the absolute probability. It's a relative probability. So that is the basic difference. So it's a G of r gives you a relative probability. Because the moment you say probability, people say, oh, probability, how is it greater than 1? So G of r may be greater than 1, less than 1. Sorry, it cannot be less than 1. Sorry. It can be greater than 1, less than 1, or equal to 0, but it cannot be less than 0, right? So either if the molecule is not there or molecule is there, you cannot, there is nothing called a negative G of r. So G of r can be, so relative to an ideal gas, what is the probability? That's what you are calculating. So you understand what I'm saying? So if I have a system, you are looking at these spherical shells and you're going step by step by step. So initially you will say, so let's look at, and you're calculating if it is an ideal gas, what it would have been. And if it's a real gas, that is what your rho of r g, and you're dividing the number of real gas by number of ideal gas, that will give me G of r. If G of r is greater than 1, that means the system, the number of molecules will be greater than compared to than ideal gas. If G of r equals 1, that means throughout the system, there's a uniform distribution. There's no changes in any local density. And if G of r is less than 1, that means compared to an ideal gas, the probability of finding the particle is less. Okay, so it's a relative probability compared to relative to your ideal gas. Now, for any system, what will happen, and why is this G of r variations occurring? The G of r variations are even coming because of the presence of intramolecular forces. In the absence of intramolecular forces, I know G of r is 1. So this is G of r for an ideal gas. So let me just, so I'll write here, this is for an ideal gas. At any distance you go, G of r is always 1. Ideal gas, Ig is ideal gas. Okay. Now let's think of a system, let's say if it's a real gas which has a short range attraction, what will happen at large distances? So let's say this r in terms of the particle diameters I'm writing, this is 0, this is 1, 2, 3, 4, in terms of particle diameters. So that means I'm 4 particle diameters away, 5, 6, 7. And these short range forces are only effective within maybe 1 or 2 particle diameters. Let's say I say that, or 2 to 3 particle diameters. Now, what will happen? Let's say at 5, 6, 7. What should those curves look like for a real gas?
So they should asymptote to the ideal gas curve.
Correct. Exactly right. So any system I take, at what distance they will touch ideal gas or how they approach ideal gas may vary, but let's assume they will always come to, at large distances, they will have something like this. Okay, so they will, so but the interesting part is happening here. Okay. Now let's start with a hard sphere system, right? So you have a hard sphere system, and basically what you are doing is that in G of r is basically an average quantity. So what I said is you sit on one of the molecules and then you calculate how many molecules are there within a shell, right? Of course, you cannot just, it cannot be based on just one molecules, right? You have to sit on all the molecules and many times, and every time you report a number. Is all of you following this? So I know, let's say I have 100 molecules or 1000 molecules in a box of size maybe, let's say 10. Okay, what is the number density? What is the number density? This is a box size. So let me just. What is the number density for this?
100 per box.
100.
What is the number density for the system? Box is
It
of
will be
size.
1.
This is the edge.
100. 1. 1. Okay, 1.
Yeah, correct. Number density is 1, right? Because this is the length of the box. N by V will give me 1. So remember, number density can be 1. It's not same as your volume fraction, okay? Remember that. Volume fraction is limited by your HCP or the FCC. That's around, I think, 0.72 or something. Beyond that, you cannot pack. But this is number density. Okay, it can go up to 1, it can be 1.5, doesn't matter. Of course, there is a limit beyond which you cannot pack, right? Because molecules will start repelling. Anyway. So I have this, rho star is 1. Now, let's assume I'll start with an idea. So an idea, if it's an ideal gas, any point you see, you will have a rho star of 1. At any shell you take, you divide the number of molecules in that, it will be always equal to 1. Now think of now what you're doing is you're sitting on one of the molecule, and the one molecule is actually scanning through all the distances, and it is telling you how many are there in this shell, how many are there in this shell. So it's basically, it's a progressive. You start from 0 to delta R, then delta R to between delta R and between 2 delta R. So this is what you're doing a scan. Okay, remember. And would you trust just one molecule? No, right? So you are, all the molecules are sending you this data. Molecule 1 is sending all this data, molecule 2 is sending, molecule 3 is sending, and all the n molecules are sending you this data, and many times. So finally what you do is, you, for a given particular shell, you calculate the average. So you calculate if there are n molecules which are giving AI value. So you'll say the final number of molecules which are present in that shell would be AI by n, right? This is n times these molecules have given you. And then I know if it was an ideal gas, how much it would have been. I don't have to ask the molecules. I know this myself. So then you divide this, or I'll use this term Ni. And Ni is the number of molecules which each of them, and this n need not be the actual number of particles. This is total. Sometimes what you do is, in a given frame, so if I take a snapshot, in a given frame there are n molecules which are reporting me n different values, right? For one molecule in various shells, it is reporting you different values. So you can think that there are n molecules, each of them are reporting their own values, what they see in each of these bins. And you do this over and over and over again. And this is sum over sum all total number of such trials you have carried out. This per bin is this. So G of R would be nothing but, actually if you think of it, would be sigma n by total number of trials you did divided by rho 4 pi R square dr. Okay, so I think we are just before we end this class, just think. Okay, I'll discuss this tomorrow. Just make sure you have this and go through this. Any doubt, let me know. So I'll just stop the recording, and there is one announcement.